There are many photos on the internet dedicated to the phrase, "You had one job." And they're all about how could somebody actually do that? Didn't they recognize in the middle of their task that what they were doing didn't make sense, that it wasn't the thing? What were they actually thinking when they did that? I mean, good luck using your key on that door. That's not the way it's supposed to be. And I'm pretty sure that there's a different way that billboard was supposed to go up there. They had one job. And in our parable for today, the master gives his servants one job to go out and do. Two of them did it extremely well, and one of them failed horribly. So the question for us today is, what was their one job, and what's ours? I mean, why is Jesus telling this parable? What's he want us to learn from it? Was there one job? You should learn how to double your money. Well, two of them did, but no, that's not. Jesus is not saying, when I come back, I want to see that you doubled your money. No, that's not it. How about this? God wants us to use for him whatever he's entrusted in our life until he comes back. Oh, that sounds pretty good. In fact, that was the theme for last week's parable, but not quite this parable. Because when you live for God, that's kind of a result, and there's a cause that makes that result happen, a heart cause, a faith cause. And this parable is more about that cause because it gets into what the people were thinking and feeling about what the master had sent them to do, and what they were thinking and feeling about the master. So, looking at this parable, just the surface events, you can learn a few things, of course. One is that it doesn't matter to God how much money you have. It's simply a matter of, are you faithful with what he's given you? Because the first guy, he's got more than twice as much as the next guy, who's got twice as much, as the next guy. But for the first two, the master is equally pleased with both of them. He says the exact same words. "Well done, good and faithful servant. You've been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Come and share your master's happiness." Even though one of them had earned twice as much as the next one, but the next one, if he got according to his ability, he overdid his ability because he matched the first one, but the master, he's just happy with what they both had done, and equally so. So it doesn't matter how much you have, but are you faithful with it? Okay, that's a fairly easy thing to grasp. But how does it apply in our world? I was reading a book about a guy who visited a pastor in Kenya at his home. The guy who wrote the book grew up a lot like me. His dad was a farmer. My dad was a farmer. His dad then went on to become a factory worker. Same with me. Grew up very middle class. But now he finds himself in that hut. Well, one like it. And the pastor is there with his family, and his youngest child is playing with her favorite toy, which would be garbage to us. It was a spent D-cell battery. But, you can make a roller out of it. You can do all kinds of things if you have imagination, right? So she's playing in the dirt with that, and he's just thinking, wow, what a difference between this family's world and my world. I wonder how that affects how God is working in his kingdom. And he said to the pastor, "What is the greatest hindrance to the work of the gospel here?" And the guy said, "Materialism." And the author thought, wow, does he have it wrong? I mean, that's our problem here in America. Well, that's not your problem, And that the pastor went on. You see, if a guy has a mud hut, he wants a stone hut. And if he's got a thatched roof, he wants a tin roof. And if he has one room, he wants two rooms. And the understanding came across to the author that materialism is not just a disease of the haves. I mean, Jesus talked so much about money in the Bible because it applies to everyone. It's a problem of humanity. It is a revealer of the heart. And when you reveal the heart, you see that we all struggle with kind of the same things. With trust, with greed, with envy, with materialism, with comparison to others, with stinginess, with control, with fear, with priorities. All of these things are all kind of jumbled up inside each of us, and we're trying to do it right. And I think that the main point of this parable is that if you get God right, you get money right. And if you turn it around, if you've got money wrong, you've got God wrong. Second thing you can see right off in this parable is that faith requires action, doing what God put you in this world for. What was the great problem with that third servant? I mean, what did he do that was so terrible? He gave the master all of his money back. It wasn't like the master entrusted him with these things and he said, aha, I'm going to have some fun now until he comes back. No, that was last week's parable. This guy didn't spend any of it on himself. In fact, in those days, digging a hole and burying it was common. That's how you banked. That's how you preserved things so that it would be the safest you could think of how to put it away. And so when the master came back, he gave the master all of the money back that he had been entrusted with. So what was so terrible about that? What's so wrong? He probably thought he did a pretty good thing. And here's where I think we get more to the heart of the parable, because he tells us why he did what he did. He says, Master, I knew that you're a hard man, harvesting where you've not sown, gathering where you've not scattered seed, so I was afraid. He acted out of fear instead of the confidence that he ought to have had because of the master that he had. He was actually afraid of the master. And fear cripples our ability to follow God. It cripples many areas of life. For instance, my dad was an excellent ball player. When he was a kid, they wouldn't let him play with the other kids his age. He had to play up with the older kids because he said it wasn't fair. He's on your team. I was a little league dropout. You know, I didn't have that skill. And besides that, I was afraid of messing up. You know, I'd get up to bat. Oh, boy, what if I hit it wrong? One day I came home from a game, and my dad said, well, how'd it go today? And I said, I hit the ball so far it went out into the pond, which was true, but it was a while before I told him that I popped up and the pond was actually behind the backstop. But, you know, it was my best effort that day. Anyway, when you play ball, you need to play with confidence. You need to play like your talents are going to be put to use here. You need to not fear mistakes. You need to, go for it. That's how you get to play ball. And how do you live the Christian life? There's a lot of similarity there because we're confident in what the Master had given us and in who the Master is. Some people think that Christianity is mostly about what you don't do. Like when God comes back, he says, well, how'd you do? You can say, I didn't do this, and I didn't do this, and I didn't do this. Aren't you proud? Which is important. We stay away from sin. And yet, according to this parable, far more important is what did you actually do with what I have given you? And that requires faith. That requires action. And it requires confidence because in the parable, that was an awful lot of money. Whether you count it up according to the weight or according to the value of a day's labor, it all comes together to say it was about $2 million a bag. So whether you got 5 bags or 2 bags or just 1 bag, it was still an awful lot of money, which would require confidence to go out and do what you were trained to do and to use it and to risk it and to invest it and to buy and sell and that sort of thing. And a lot of that depended on how you felt about the master. Did he give you that confidence? Would he be critical of all your decisions and all what you tried? Would he be encouraging? Would he support you in doing your best? And I think that these servants felt differently about their master on that point. Now, some of us are thinking, well, if somebody gave me a couple $1 million to put into, to work with, what would I do? But actually, spiritually speaking, we are in that situation because God has put us into this world with something very, very valuable. Yeah, it's our earning potential, but it's far more than that. It's our faith, it's our knowledge of God, it's our friendships, it's our connections, it's our reputation, it's our job, it's our free time. It's all the things he's put into our life that he says, this is your life or my life. Which is it? What are you doing with it? Are you using it for the sake of the master? And it's a risk to live that way. Because not everyone you talk to is going to be all that interested in how you feel about God. And not every church you support is going to prosper. And not every effort you volunteer for is going to be rewarding. But faith requires action. Like those first two servants who jumped right in, and it says they went at once. They didn't even hesitate. So why not the third servant? Why did he feel the way he did? It says, I was afraid because I knew you were a hard man that's expecting way too much. The word hard means just what you would think. It means merciless, it means cruel, it means strict, it means harsh. And do you think he was right about that? I mean, at the end of the parable, he certainly gets a harsh punishment. Here's another servant cast out into the darkness where there's weeping and gnashing of teeth, which I take to mean like the realization that you're apart from God and that you deserve to be where you are. And in the final extreme, that would be hell itself. Why did he get there? And was he right? Was the master cruel? Well, in our parable, it says the master was gone a long time. How long do you think that was? Do you think maybe a year? Maybe 5? Maybe 10 years? And it also says that when the servant said, here's your money back, he said to him, you should have put my money on deposit with the bankers, so that when I returned, I would have received it back with interest. Sounds like he would have been happy with that. Now, let's suppose that in your job, your boss gives you a couple $1 million to work with and says, here's what I want you to do. I want you to go out and buy a CD for the company, or maybe start a brokerage account and let the bankers there invest it for the company. Maybe once a year go back and rebalance it, that sort of thing. But let the professionals do it. And that was your job, and you got 5 years of wages for doing an afternoon's work every year. Would you say to yourself, it's so hard. My work-life balance is way off whack. My boss is so demanding. No, it sounds rather easy to me. So was he right in what he was thinking about his master being so harsh because his master benefited from his work that way? He'll find fault with everything. He won't like anything I do. Where did he get that thought from? I think that if you don't know God very well, your default is likely to be, God is this scary judge up there who lays down all the rules and is watching closely to catch me at wherever I mess up. And he'll bring it up and he'll judge me for it, and I really don't like him. That's kind of the default that many people have when they think about God, like this guy. And how are you different? What do you know about God? You know that he loved you enough to die for you, that he took every debt you owed and paid it himself when he didn't deserve to do that he took your sin, your pain, your punishment, your guilt, your faults, and did away with them and said, you are beloved in my sight, and I look at you, you're my child. And if you believe that, then it gives you the confidence to say, okay, I'm going to be like those first two servants because I know the master. I know what he's like. And I know that when he's asking me to do something, he's right there with me, and that his love never leaves me. Of course, with money, there are complications in how we think about that, because sometimes we feel like we don't have enough, or we've got baggage that we've picked up along the way, maybe from when we grew up. Maybe in the household that you lived in, money was something you never talked about. And so now you're married and you still never talk about it. Or maybe it's something that just brings a sense of fear. Or whenever there's some sort of financial challenge, you go into crisis mode. Ah! And maybe you pick that up along the way. Maybe it needs to be unlearned. Have any of you ever played a game with kids where you shouted out the phrase, "Ollie, ollie, oxen free," and everybody came back? You know that game? You ever played that game? You know that phrase doesn't make any sense at all. What's it got? Who's Ollie? Where are the oxen? I read that you're actually saying the wrong thing, okay? That centuries ago, when the game began, the phrase was, all and all and all are free. Like everyone's free, this round is done, come back, we start again. But that kids kind of parrot what they hear and what they think they hear and fill in the gaps. And somehow oxen got in there, and whoever Ollie is, he got in there. And they started saying this, and other kids started saying this, and now you're saying this, even though you know it makes no sense. And in the same way, you've picked up ideas about money that make no sense, and maybe they need to be unlearned. Because what does God say? He says, "My cup overflows." You know that phrase. Does your cup overflow? Is God blessing you that way? Jesus said, "I have come that they may have life and have it abundantly." Do you feel like you have life abundantly? John said, "Behold the manner of love the Father has lavished on us." Do you feel that God's love is just lavished upon you, overflowing and abundant? Because that's the kind of life God has given us. And if we know the heart of God to be that generous toward us, we can have faith not only in challenging times, not only in money matters, not only in any decision we make, not to be without fear, but that we walk with God all the way in every situation. And that when God comes back, we can say, "I know I'm sinful, I haven't done everything perfectly, but God, I have lived for you." And what will he see as his return? He will see people who've been loved. He will see faith enduring in trial. He will see praise and prayer and people brought closer to God because you lived and you have a witness and you have an example. And oh yeah, he will see money used for him too and ministry funded and that sort of thing. But all that we are, he gives us the courage to see is for God. Because he gives us that courage because of who he is. When I was in high school, they started a new Lutheran high school when I was in 10th grade. And new Lutheran schools have no money. And so they were trying to raise money all the time. And they even had us kids be auctioned off, those who volunteered. Like we'd sign a paper, we would do a certain job, and the people would come and they'd bid on that, and then we'd have to go do it. So my buddy and I, we volunteered for a certain job, and then we never heard from it again. And I thought, well, when are they going to call? You know, did they lose the piece of paper? And it was a long time before I figured out my parents bought that. They never fessed up. But I know my parents, they bought it. Because that's the kind of people they are. And who or were. And who's the kind of person that God is for you? Is he harsh? Or is he quite the opposite of that in love for you? See, I think he's waiting to see whether we will say, "Gift received, okay, God, I'm going to live for you." And then he, with his almighty power, will step in and accomplish more in us than we thought possible. But first he waits for us to say, "Yes, Lord, this life is yours. All of it is for you." And one more thing I think we can see in this parable about money and possessions. The parable shows us that how we respond to money is not just a test of our faith, it's also a training. Because the Master said, "Well done, good and faithful servant. You've been faithful in a few things, a few bags of millions of dollars of gold. I'll put you in charge of many things." It's like when God comes back, he's not going to say, "Well done, servant. You lived for me. Here's your reward. I'm going to give you an easy chair by the beach for all eternity." No, he says, "I'm going to give you something far more exciting and better than that. I'm going to give you opportunities to use the skills you showed me here." And I don't know what they will be. It'll be exciting. And I also know it'll be joyful, because he says, come and share your master's happiness. So there will be happiness both in what he gives us to do and in the master's happiness with us. Amen.